الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونسترشده ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا، لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. وأشهد أن نبينا وعظيمنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يقول جل جلاله في محكم كتابه: فبما رحمة من الله لنت لهم ولو كنت فظا غليظ القلب لانفضوا من حولك. It says subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Ali Imran, talking about the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It is because of the mercy and compassion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you found the ability to be tender with them. And had you not been, and had you been someone difficult, then they would have left you. It's impossible to go through these times and these months without at least taking one khutbah and talking about him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as a reminder for all of us of who it is that brought all of this to us and who it is that we are following, the person that we actually are supposed to be fully attached to, the person whom our eyesight should be fully focused upon, alayhi salatu wassalam. And I had prepared a khutbah a few nights ago, and I went through a number of points, and I wrote down these points, and I gave them these really cool titles, and I was really happy about them. I had all these flashy titles, unconditionally empathetic and genuinely humble, and I had all these examples, and I was very happy. And then I laid down, and I thought about him, alayhi salatu wassalam. And I hadn't done that in a while. And I advise you to do that. When you go to sleep, just take a moment and think about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Just think about him for a moment. And I hadn't done it for a long time, and I felt bad that I hadn't done that for some reason. Dunya and the distractions of it. And I started asking myself, what do I really love about him alayhi salatu wasalam? I made all these very flashy titles, but deep inside I felt there was something else, and I went through the things that really, really meant a lot to me about who he was alayhi salatu wasalam. And I ended up with 15 points. And I'm going to share 7 of them with you today, inshallah, if time permits. لا يمكن أن يمر هذا الشهر أو أن يمر هذان الشهران دون أن نتحدث عنه صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، عن ذلك الذي أقام الله به هذا الدين، وذلك الذي هو شفيع الخلق يوم القيامة، وذلك الذي يحرك حلق باب الجنة صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم فداه أبي وأمي. ذلك الذي نقتدي به هو أسوتنا وقائدنا وسيدنا، ولا غاية من وجودنا إذ لم نحببه صلى الله عليه وسلم، وهو باب حبنا لله جل جلاله. وأشارككم اليوم بعض الصفات أو بضع صفات أحبها عنه صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. The first one, he found time for the little things. People who are very, very highly motivated, extremely successful, powerfully driven, are usually too focused on the bigger things. And they don't have time for the simple parts of life. The Prophet ﷺ united a peninsula that had never seen unity in its history, in the entirety of its whole history. He was able to bring it together, turn it into an empire that would rule the world for a millennium. That level of motivation and that level of success, you would think ﷺ didn't have time for stuff like this, but he had time. He found time for little things. He would go and he'd spend time with his children, with his grandchildren. They would find him ﷺ on all four with 1 or 2 of his grandchildren on his back as he's galloping around. And they would ask him, what are you doing, Ya Rasulullah? Some people would look at this and think, this doesn't make any sense. You are the chief, you're the commander, you are the leader of humanity, and you're on all four playing with a 3-year-old. He wasn't beyond that. He wasn't beyond finding time to do the simple things in life. كان صلى الله عليه وسلم في مهنة أهله يخدم أهله ويخدم أهله ويخصف نعله ويكنس داره. alayhi salatu found time. He would be seen at home taking care of his family, sewing his clothing and fixing his shoes. and sweeping the floor and playing with his children, taking his wives on trips, alayhi salatu wasalam. He wasn't beyond that. He found time for the little things that matter to the people around you in life. You can work hard as much as you like and build a great status for yourself and build wealth. If you don't spend time with the people around you, it's not going to mean anything at the end. He knew that, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he found time for it. كان عليه الصلاة والسلام يجد الوقت ليقضيه مع الذين من حوله في قضايا قد لا تهم كبار النفوس أو كبار الناس الذين هم مشغولون بالطموحات وبالإنجازات وبإرادة تغيير الأمة وبحمل هموم البشر. هؤلاء عادة ليس عندهم الوقت يقضي صلى الله عليه وسلم وقته مع الصغار ومع الأطفال ومع أحفاده ومع زوجاته ويخدم أهله في داره ويخصف النعل. لم يكن يرى أن هذه المهمة أقل منه عليه الصلاة والسلام. لا، ليست أقل منه. هو كان يوجد الوقت في حياته ليقضيه في مثل هذه الأمور. Second point. He treated those who were not of any value to him or to anyone else the way he would want it to be treated himself. He treated the people who could not add any value to him. They could not add any social or financial or religious value to him at all, the way he would treat those of the highest status in the community. And that's how you show your real colors in life. It's how you treat people you don't think can ever benefit you. That's how your true colors shine. It's how you treat someone who, when you look at them, you think this person can be of no value to me ever in this dunya. And how you treat them is who you are. Alayhi salatu wassalam treated people like that the way he would want to be treated. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's why he spent all his time with Ahl al-Suffah. That's why he wouldn't eat until they ate before him. We don't know the names of 99% of the people who were in the masjid of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam living. You're talking about people who came who were so poor, so weak, so oppressed that they couldn't afford to leave the masjid to live somewhere else. They couldn't do it. All their lives, we don't know their names. Maybe Abu Hurairah, maybe Salman at one point, maybe Qatada. That's it. There were over 300 people who circulated through Ahl al-Suffah. But the Prophet ﷺ would spend as much time as needed with them. Speak to them and listen to them and talk to them. Treat them and give them that importance that they deserved. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would be taken by the hand by an orphan servant girl. Someone who has nothing, someone who was enslaved at a young age with nothing left, taken by the hand. Say, Ya Rasulullah, I need help to buy cucumbers or something for my family. He would go and he would help her out, alayhi salatu wasalam. An elderly Bedouin lady would stand him in the middle of the sun, telling him about all her problems, and our sons are doing this and her daughters are doing that. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam, just listening. He treated those who had nothing to add the way he would want to be treated himself, alayhi salatu wasalam. كان صلى الله عليه وسلم يعامل ضعاف القوم كما يحب أن يعامل هو عليه الصلاة والسلام. الطريقة التي تعامل بها الناس الذين ليس عندهم القدرة أو الإمكانية أن يضيفوا على حياتك شيئا، أن يعطوك شيئا، أن يمدحوك أو أن يقروك أو أن يرفعوا مقامك. الطريقة التي تعامل بها هؤلاء القوم هي هو التعبير الحقيقي عن الخلق الذي هو موجود في داخلك. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عامل هؤلاء كأهل الصفة ومن كان على شاكلتهم، عاملهم بالطريقة التي كان يحب أن يعامل بها هو عليه الصلاة والسلام. فكان البعض يتساءل، كان بعض كبار القوم إذا أتوه عليه الصلاة والسلام يقولون له نجلس معك وبجانبك بلال وعمار وصهيب. يجلس هؤلاء هم جلسائي. أحببت تجلس اجلس، ما بدك تجلس ربي يسر لك. لأنه عليه الصلاة والسلام لم يكن يبحث عن الفائدة صلى الله عليه وسلم. The third point, he took selfless, sincere interest in the lives of the people around him. None of this artificial stuff that we do, where we ask you, how are you doing? What's your name? Where are you going? How are your family? It goes in one ear, leaves the other. Forget your name immediately the moment you're walking away from you. None of that. He took time to get to know people, to know their names, to know their backgrounds, keep that piece of information in their minds. He actually cared, alayhi salatu wasalam. It's hard to believe in this self-absorbed time that we live in, where we're all so focused on our own problems, that there was actually people who cared about others, who actually wanted to know, wanted to learn, wanted to hear, wanted to be a part of other people's lives. That interest, when you take it out of a community can't rise, can't stand up. communities will not progress if the individuals within it don't have the ability to take sincere and selfless and genuine interest in the lives of people around them. I know that about my own self. And the reason I'm bringing up these points, by the way, is because these are the things I'm impressed by. These are the things that aren't me. These are the things about him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that I can't seem to get. They're better. He's better than me, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that's why we aspire to be like him, because he could do that. He would walk out of a ta'if bleeding from the head to the foot, probably in the worst situation he had ever been in his life. He would say that later, the worst day of my life after the ta'if. And a young boy with a broken accent because he wasn't even from the land, servant, enslaved at a young age, would come to him, alayhi salatu wasalam. He would ask him, what's your name? Addas. Where are you from? Nainawa. Oh, that's this. And he would have a conversation with him. He didn't treat him as some secondary or tertiary character in his storyline, as the way we do. You're the star of your film and all these characters are meaningless. No, alayhi salatu wasalam would take a moment to focus on somebody. Amr ibn Absa met him one day, early in Islam, for 15 minutes. Asked him 3 questions. What do you call for? Who is with you? What can I do? And the Prophet ﷺ told him, take the basic information you heard today and go to your people. I'm too weak to actually protect you. You're going to be butchered if you stay here. He would go. He would come 15 years later with Muslims walking behind him from his people. Now, he had all this hype built up, Amr ibn Absa. I met the Prophet ﷺ. I know him. But in his mind is like, I only met him for 15 minutes. This was 15 years ago. I doubt that he even remembers who I am. He probably doesn't even remember meeting me, alayhi salatu wasalam, which is the story for me. So he's walking and he's hoping, Ya Rabb, I don't get embarrassed. Because I'm telling these people I know him. If I come up to him and say, Ya Rasulullah, and he's like, who are you? It's going to look bad. From afar. Amr ibn Absa still was just basically coming up somewhere in the horizon. The Prophet ﷺ, once he saw him from afar, would call, Amr ibn Absa. فيقول, تذكرني يا رسول الله. You remember me, Ya Rasulullah? Yes, of course he remembers you. I remember you and what we talked about. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Taking that interest in people is how he built Zayd ibn Thabit and Mu'adh ibn Jabal and Usama ibn Zayd. These names became Abdullah ibn Umar and Abdullah ibn Abbas. These names became what they became because they found someone who cared about them, who actually took interest in their lives. It's hard going through life feeling that no one actually sees anything in you. Walking through life feeling that no one sees anything or cares. It brings down the morale like nothing you can imagine. It makes you feel, you lose ambition. Alayhi salatu wasalam took time to make sure you felt that he saw something in you. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. كان عليه الصلاة والسلام يهتم بمن حوله اهتماما حقيقيا مخلصا صحيحا ليس مصطنعا. لم يكن يسأل عن حالك ثم ينساك وإنما إذا سألك عن حالك ذكرك وما زال يذكرك وما زال يسأل عنك وينادي الناس أن أتيت به نرى ما صنع صلى الله عليه وصحبه وسلم. وهذا الاهتمام الحقيقي الذي وضعه في الناس هو الذي نهض بالأمة، هو الذي جعل هؤلاء الشباب الصغار كابن عباس وابن عمر وابن عمرو وابن الزبير ومعاذ وغيرهم ممن فتحوا البلاد والدنيا وأقاموا دولة الإسلام لتحكم العالم سنين طويلة، لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم استثمر فيهم. الاستثمار، تستثمر عواطفك ووقتك وجهدك ومحبتك في البشر. تستثمر في ماذا؟ في الأبنية. يا أخواني، صلى الله عليه وسلم ما ترك خلفه بناء، ما ترك وراءه لا قلعة ولا قصرا ولا ترك خلفه بشرا استثمر فيهم من حياته من نفسه، أعطاهم جزءا من قلبه الشريف عليه الصلاة والسلام. وصل هذا إلينا اليوم. To invest in people, investing in people, not in places. He didn't leave behind him castles, he didn't leave behind him great architectural monuments. He left behind him people that he invested a piece of his heart in, alayhi salatu wasalam. And unless we do that again, nothing's going to change. Point after that. He loved with his full heart, alayhi salatu wasalam. When he loved, he really loved. Not what we all invest ourselves only to a certain extent when we love, because we're afraid of loss. We're afraid of pain. It's real. It's very real, because if you love something too much and you lose it, it's very hard to lose. There's pain that's associated with that, the fear of committing to something because you may lose it. And then how am I going to deal with this pain? So we put up all these nice walls where we only invest a little bit of our emotion. Just enough to enjoy, and just enough so that if I lose it, I'm not going to lose my mind. Alayhi salatu wasalam was none of that stuff. No, he invested his full heart in something. If he loved it, he loved it. He wasn't afraid. He took the risk of losing it. Life is just a couple of risks that you take. That's all it is. Just, 50, 60 risks that you take. That's all life is going to be at the end. He took these risks, and he lost. So just so you don't think, well, he was lucky. No, he lost. He buried 18 of his direct relatives, alayhi salatu wasalam. His father and his mother. Didn't bury him, but they died before him. His father, his mother, his wife, 2 of his male children, 3 of his female children, his adopted son, his uncle, his grandfather, 3 of his uncles, 3 of his aunts, and 4 of his cousins. And these are people he spent his days with, alayhi salatu wasalam. Didn't stop him from investing and loving full-heartedly all the time. Never stopped him. He didn't mind being vulnerable. And when he needed to cry, he cried. And when he needed to mourn and grieve, he mourned and he grieved. And that's a part of life. We don't do that. We protect ourselves. We're scared. He wasn't, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. كان إذا أحب ملء قلبه وملء فؤاده صلى الله عليه وسلم. إذا أحب ملأ قلبه حبا بذلك المحبوب. نحن نخشى ذلك. إذا أحببت شيئا أو إذا أحببت أحدا حبا كثيرا خشيت أن تفقده وخوف هذا الفقد وخوف ألم الفقد يمنعنا عن أن نحب بكل قلوبنا. لكنه صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يكن يخشى ذلك. كان إذا أحب زوجته أو أحب ولده أو أحب زيد بن حارثة أو أحب أصحابه أو أحبهم ثم إذا ما فقدهم بكى عليهم ولم يكن يستحيي من ذلك. لم يكن يخجل أن يبكي وأن يحزن وأن ينشطر فؤاده الشريف عليه الصلاة والسلام حزنا على من فقد. لكن كان يحب. ما الحياة بدون الحب؟ ما الحياة إذا لم تستثمر عواطفك، إذا لم تحبب شيئا حبا حقيقيا؟ ما الفائدة من الحياة؟ والله ما أدري. حياة مملة، حياة ميتة، حياة والله يكاد لا يكون لها قيمة. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يغفر لكم يا فوز المستغفرين. استغفر الله. الحمد لله وحده وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبع نهجه ووفى عهده. 5th point, the Prophet ﷺ, when he committed to something, he committed to it. None of this nice little balance that we do. 1 foot here and 1 foot there. I have just enough of dunya and just enough of akhirah. Hopefully, whatever works out for me. None of that. When he committed to something, he went all in. He held nothing back. He exhausted every resource. He saw his goal. He locked in on it and he went for it. And you could not stop him. And it was the fact that you could not stop him that people were frustrated with him around him, alayhi salatu wasalam. Not the believers, but the non-believers. They would say, we don't know, you beat us. You keep on coming back. No matter what we do, no matter how many times we try and stop you, no matter how many times we hurt you, you keep on coming back. He never stopped. He was unstoppable, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Abu Sufyan would say, غَلَبْتَنَا يَا Muhammad. You beat me. Not with military, you beat me with who you are. You won't stop. After Abu Sufyan had not only tried to destroy the Prophet ﷺ's Medina and betrayed him 3 or 4 times, trying to kill him personally, after all of that and being caught red-handed, the Prophet ﷺ would come to him, Ya Abu Sufyan, هَلَّا قُلْتَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And Abu Sufyan would say, Wallahi, I don't know what to tell you. You beat me. You keep on coming back with this. You should have killed me by now. Why are you still telling me, say, La ilaha illallah? Because his goal was clear, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was committed to it. He would say, I'm going to stick to this. حَتَّى يُتِمَّ اللَّهُ هَذَا الْأَمْرَ أَوْ تَنْفَرِيدَ سَالِفَتِي. Either Allah can write success or I die. I'm not stopping any time before that. And that's what he did, alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's that commitment that people learned from him living with him. He never stopped. No matter what was happening, he never stopped. صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يأل جهدا في تبليغ الدعوة. استخدم كل الأساليب الممكنة حتى يوصل هذا الأمر. لا يمكن إيقافه صلى الله عليه وسلم. لا يمكن إبطاؤه صلى الله عليه وسلم. يقولون له أما تنام فيسكت صلى الله عليه وسلم. يعني يرتاح لك شوي. غفر لك ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم عليه ويتابع صلى الله عليه وسلم. يتعب من حوله أتعب من بعده صلى الله عليه وسلم. ولذلك كان أبو بكر على شاكلته وعمر على شاكلته. رأوا منه التزاما لم يكن يستطيع أحدا أن يغير فيه شيئا. لم يستطع أحد أن يثنيه أبدا صلى الله عليه وصحبه وسلم. The 6th point. He was unchangeable. You couldn't change him. Throughout his life, if you took his life and you look at the graph went up and down. Difficult times and easy times and really difficult times and easier times. You could take him, alayhi salatu wasalam, at any point in that graph, anywhere you wanted. Take him at any moment and speak to him. Same person. Not one thing would change. Not one way of speech, not one perspective, nothing about his ethics would ever change. Whether he is weak or he is strong, he is humble. Whether he has a lot or he has a little, he is generous. These ethics he was loyal to these ethics. These ethics were constants, not variables. The world around you keeps on moving, waves of change all the time. It never stops, by the way. There is no such thing as istiqrar, as they say in Arabic, stability. There's no such thing. It's a myth. It doesn't exist. Nothing is stable. Everything is changing. That's the reality of life. And the sooner you understand it, the sooner you accept it, the happier you're going to be. The only constant in all of this change is you and your ethics. Alayhi salatu wasalam never changed. You can see him when he was in Mecca. No one is speaking to him. They are persecuting him. They are physically abusing him. And then look at him as he is ruling Arabia. There's no difference. It's the same person, saying the same things, treating people the same way. Towards the end of his life, as he was the ruler, the chief and commander of Arabia, a man would come hearing the myths about who he was, alayhi salatu wasalam, standing there shaking in fear because he's speaking to this man who was changed the world. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam would tell him, "Hawwin alayk, take it easy. Innama ana ibnu imra'atin kanat ta'kulu al-qadida bi Makkah." My mother used to make beef jerky in Mecca. We didn't have enough money to actually eat fresh meat. Take it easy. Take it easy. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Never changed, ever. صلى الله عليه وسلم أخلاقه ثابتة ما تغيرت وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم لا يمكن تغييره أعطيته القليل أو الكثير هو كريم كان عزيز قومه أو كان مضطهدا في قومه هو متواضع ومحب هذه أخلاقه ثابتة لا يمكن تغييرها فلا اقتحم العقبة وما أدراك ما العقبة فك رقبة أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة يتيما ذا مقربة أو مسكينا ذا متربة هذه الأخلاق أن تجتاز أن تقتحم العقبة أن تقتحم عقبة أن تتغير أخلاقك بتغير الحال من حولك الأحوال من حولك سوف تبقى تتغير إلى حتى ساعة وفاتك قضية أن الدنيا تثبت وتستقر وأنك ترتاح هذا غير موجود غير موجود في الدنيا هذا غير موجود هذا الأمل فيه هذا أمل شيطاني أنه سيأتي الوقت وأستقر لا ما في ستبقى الدنيا تتغير من حولك وتبقى متعبا لكن تثبت أخلاقه كما ثبتت أخلاقه صلى الله عليه وسلم. The final point I'll share with you, and this is my favorite one. He took himself lightly, alayhi salatu wasalam. He took himself lightly. He had a really nice sense of humor. And he didn't take himself too seriously, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Always smiling, always good for a joke, always found things amusing around him, always was always looking for the joy in things that he encountered, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Once he was on a donkey, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he saw Mu'adh ibn Jabal, and he calls Mu'adh, "Get on." Mu'adh's like, "No, Ya Rasulullah, the donkey doesn't seem strong enough." "No, get on. Ya Rasulullah, I'll just walk beside you." "Ya Mu'adh, I'm telling you to get on." So Mu'adh gets on. He gets on. The donkey does what a donkey does. And the Prophet ﷺ goes flying into the air, he and Mu'adh. And they land, the donkey's on the ground, and both of them are lying in the sand. Whenever you walk in public and you trip and you fall, you stand up, you look around, you brush it off and keep on walking, act like nothing happened. Why? Because we're all very insecure. I'm very insecure. I do that. I do it all the time. I'm very clumsy. I break something, act like it didn't happen, keep on walking. Very insecure. The Prophet ﷺ, not insecure at all. Mu'adh felt horrible. Mu'adh felt that insecurity. He was on the ground. He caused it. He looks at the Prophet. The Prophet is laughing. Full smile, laughing. Thinks it's hilarious. Look what the donkey did. He gets up. He brushes himself off. He brushes the donkey off. He gets on. He gets Mu'adh on again. Had no problem with this stuff. He was very secure of who he was as a human being. And he took himself lightly. He didn't think he was beyond anything, any joke or any gesture. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that aspect of his personality is extremely important. He would joke with the Sahaba, and the Sahaba would joke with him. And he never took it personally. He never said, "No, this is never like that." Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. These are the 7 points I wanted to share with you about him, alayhi salatu wasalam. These are his ethics, his values, his characteristics. The interesting part of Surah Al-Qalam at the end of it. The ayah, listen to this ayah and see if you can. This is what he says, subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِن يَكَادُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِمْ لَمَّا سَمِعُوا الذِّكْرَ وَيَقُولُونَ إِنَّهُ لَمَجْنُونَ وَمَا هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. What does this ayah mean? They looked as hard as they could for a flaw in his character. They were looking for anything. Anything, just one flaw, just one mistake that they could say he does this. He acts like that, he treats people like this, he speaks like this. They couldn't find anything. And it was so frustrating to them because they want to discredit him. They want to discredit Muhammad. If you can discredit the messenger, you can discredit the message. It's very simple, it's very easy, still happens today. The message may be beautiful, but if the person who's delivering it is discredited by a flaw in their character, suddenly the message is not important. That's why standing on his minbar, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we carry this responsibility. It's very scary. It's very scary to stand and do these things because you're being held to the same standards. Impossible. We're nothing like that, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they would look at him so frustrated. وَإِن يَكَادْ, they would stare at him with their eyes. يَكَادُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِم. They would stare at him with their eyes, trying to make him slip. لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ means slip. Not literally slip. Not literally, but figuratively slip. Just make a mistake. They would stare with this anger and this frustration, hoping that he would just slip once so they could say he's this or that. But he never did. Imagine if he did. Imagine what would the deen be today if he did. He didn't, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what did they say? Majnoon. Majnoon is not an ethical flaw. Insanity is not an ethical flaw, right? It's just a characteristic that you can't control. So that's what they said. And that's all they had on him, alayhi salatu wasalam. And of course, he wasn't doing that. That wasn't who he was. I hope this khutbah was of benefit. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ أَمَرَنَا بِأَمْرٍ عَظِيمٍ بدأه بنفسه وثنى به بملائكة قدسه فقال إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد وارض الله عن الأربعة الخلفاء السادة الحنفاء أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وارض اللهم عن زوجاته أمهات المؤمنين وعن آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعن صحابته الغر المحجلين وعن التابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات اللهم فرج هم المهمومين ونفس كرب المكروبين وارفع الغم عن المغمومين اللهم ردنا والمسلمين أجمعين إلى دينك ردا جميلا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون أقم الصلاة